My name is Marissa Hale, and I am 47 years old. I had just stepped onto the football field for my daughter's graduation when my entire world split in half. My husband, my partner of 22 years, leaned in, adjusted his tie, and whispered that he was leaving me. No warning. No remorse. And certainly no shame in choosing that moment, surrounded by parents, faculty, and cameras. But he didn't expect what I had discovered the night before. He didn't know that the power he thought he held over me had already evaporated. And when he finally realized it, he started screaming. Before I continue, tell me your country and the time right now. I can still feel the sun on my face, the roar of the crowd, the proud music swelling as the graduating class filed in, and then the ice-cold breath of the man who had promised to love me forever brushing my ear. Marissa. I'm leaving you. Today. Those 7 words didn't just break me, they detonated inside my chest. My knees nearly buckled. The bleachers blurred. My throat closed around a scream I refused to give him. I stared at Daniel, my husband of 22 years, as he straightened his suit jacket like he had just informed me the weather might turn later. His expression was smug, relieved, even, like this betrayal was a gift he'd been dying to hand me. For her, he added, as if twisting the knife would somehow make the cut cleaner. And before you embarrass yourself, don't make a scene. Not here. Not during her day. Her. Our daughter. The one we raised together. The one crossing the stage in minutes. My face burned hot while my hands went numb, but something inside me, something ancient, buried, and forgotten, steadied. I inhaled deeply, and somewhere between the inhale and the exhale, I smiled. It startled him. What the hell is that look, he muttered, narrowing his eyes. You're not crying. Why aren't you crying? I could have laughed at the irony. The man who blindsided me wasn't prepared for my reaction. He expected a meltdown. He expected begging. He expected me to crumble the way he'd rehearsed in his mind. But all I could think about was the envelope I'd found the night before. The one tucked in the back of his locked desk drawer. The documents. The signatures. The transfers. The proof. The betrayal that went far deeper than an affair. He didn't know I knew. Not yet. He leaned closer, sensing something slip from his control. Marissa. What did you do? I turned my head slowly until our eyes met. I held my smile, gentle, steady, terrifying even to myself. And for the first time since I'd met him, Daniel looked scared. He opened his mouth to speak again, but the microphone crackled as the principal welcomed the crowd, drowning his voice in applause. The ceremony was starting. Parents rose to their feet. Cameras lifted. Everyone cheered. Except him. He stared only at me, suddenly unsure, suddenly threatened, suddenly small. I whispered back, just loud enough for him to hear. Oh, Daniel. You have no idea. His face drained of color. The night before the graduation, I couldn't sleep. Something in Daniel's behavior had been off for weeks, coldness, secrecy, too many late-night work meetings. I wasn't looking for proof of an affair. I was looking for reassurance I wasn't losing my mind. Instead, I found the envelope. A plain manila envelope shoved behind tax folders, locked in his office drawer. He hadn't expected me to find the spare key, he'd forgotten I was the one who hid it years ago. I slid the papers out at the kitchen table, the soft hum of the refrigerator the only sound in the house. At first I didn't understand what I was looking at. Land titles. Bank statements from accounts I'd never seen. A trust fund opened 15 years ago, long before any suspected affair. Wire transfers to a woman I didn't recognize. Signatures that looked like mine, but weren't. I remember sitting frozen, every breath jagged, as the truth formed shape by shape in front of me. This wasn't infidelity. This wasn't midlife crisis. This was something planned, orchestrated, designed to leave me penniless and trapped. He had been preparing to vanish from our marriage long before he physically left it. I shouldn't have looked deeper. But I did. Buried under the financial chaos was a USB drive clipped to a policy binder. And that's when panic shifted, slowly, dangerously, into something sharper. Resolve. Rage. Clarity. I called an old college friend, now an attorney, without giving my name. I read her some details. She went silent. Then she whispered that these weren't marital irregularities. They were indictable crimes. She told me one sentence I'll never forget. Marissa, whatever he's planning, you need to protect yourself immediately. I barely slept. I hid everything in my purse and waited for morning like someone waiting for a storm to hit. And at the ceremony, when Daniel leaned in so casually to end our marriage, I didn't feel heartbreak. I felt confirmation. He actually thought the pieces were still hidden. But as the principal called the valedictorian's name, Daniel's phone buzzed in his hand. He glanced down, just once, and his face collapsed. His jaw clenched. His grip tightened. The veins in his neck stood out. He read the message again. And again. And again. Then slowly, his hands began to shake. I didn't know what the text said. But I knew one thing. Someone, had just blown a hole straight through his plans. And I wasn't sure whether to be afraid or grateful. Daniel's phone buzzed again, vibrating violently against his palm. He tried to silence it, but his fingers fumbled. When he finally tapped the screen, his entire body jolted, like someone had plugged him into a socket. What the? No. 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 His voice cracked. Around us, parents clapped as the next row of graduates stood. The stadium was filled with cheers. But Daniel looked like he'd seen a ghost crawl out of his phone. He stumbled back a step. His breathing turned loud, ragged. I watched his pupils dart across the screen, his lips trembling as he reread whatever nightmare was unfolding in real time. Then he snapped. Who did this? His shout cut through the ceremony like a gunshot. People turned. Heads swiveled. Faculty stopped mid-step. A few parents gasped. Somewhere in the crowd, a camera shutter clicked. Daniel didn't notice. He was too busy spiraling. He jabbed at his phone, red-faced, sweaty, borderline frantic. You incompetent idiot, he yelled into the receiver. I told you to move the transfer. How the hell did it freeze? What do you mean all accounts? That's impossible, she did this. She. He pointed at me. Dozens of eyes followed the gesture. I didn't flinch. He stepped toward me like a cornered animal, nostrils flared, jaw clenched so tightly I thought his teeth might crack. What did you do, Marissa? What the hell did you do? I tilted my head, softening my voice. Are you okay, Daniel? You're making a scene. His face twisted. The vein in his forehead throbbed violently. Don't you dare patronize me. You think you're clever? You think you're going to win? You ruined everything. Before he could finish, another call flashed onto his screen. The contact name made my eyebrows lift. Her. The mistress. He stared at the display in horror. Then he answered, voice shrill. Why are you calling me? What do you mean they talked to you? Who talked to you? Stop crying, just tell me what they said. What did they ask you? His volume rose and rose, drowning out the ceremony. Parents pulled their children closer. A graduating senior even recorded him from the front row. I stepped closer, leaning toward his ear. My whisper was silk-wrapped venom. Daniel, you really should have been more careful. He froze. Slowly, painfully, he turned his head toward me, eyes wide, wild, terrified. You knew? You knew everything? When? How? I let the silence answer for me. His breathing broke into short, sharp bursts. His hand shook so violently he nearly dropped the phone. Sweat beaded on his forehead. He looked like a man realizing he had stepped into a trap he built himself. Then he screamed again, this time not at me, not at the mistress, but at the universe itself. This wasn't supposed to happen. And for the first time, I believed him. Because the look in his eyes wasn't anger anymore. It was fear, pure, unfiltered fear. Fear of what I knew. Fear of what I'd already done. Fear of what was coming next. After the chaos at the graduation, after Daniel's screaming fit lodged itself into every parent's group chat, I drove home in silence. My daughter stayed with friends for the night, worried but safe. I needed the space. I needed the quiet. Because now that the shock was fading, the truth demanded to be dissected. I sat at the kitchen table again, the same spot where I had opened that cursed envelope, and forced myself to trace the affair. Not the emotional part. Not the heartbreak. The timeline. The facts. The things he thought I would be too devastated to piece together. Receipts. Travel itineraries. Withdrawals. Emails. Hotel confirmations under business trips. One by one, they formed a grotesque map of betrayal that had been unfolding behind my back for nearly 3 years. It hadn't started with seduction. It started with opportunity. She worked at a conference he attended. Not glamorous. Not special. Just convenient. Their first meeting lined up perfectly with a sudden corporate training weekend. Then, 3 months later, another trip. Another receipt. Another charge to our joint card. 2 years ago, the withdrawals grew larger. 18 months ago, he bought her jewelry. 10 months ago, he took her on a vacation I'd begged him to take with me. 6 months ago, he opened a new account in her name. 3 months ago, he stopped touching me. And yet, the most disturbing part wasn't what I inhaled like poison through each document. It was what didn't fit. 15 years ago, long before his affair, he opened that hidden trust fund. 15 years ago, he purchased land in his name only. 15 years ago, he started moving small amounts of money to accounts I had never heard of. Why would he plan escape routes when things were still good between us? When we were newly married, newly hopeful, newly building a life? He hadn't been planning an affair back then. He had been planning something else. A cold chill climbed my spine as realization settled. Daniel's betrayal didn't start when he met her. It started when he met me. For 22 years, I believed our marriage decayed slowly. But the paperwork told a different story, one of strategy, manipulation, and a long game I never knew I was part of. I stared at the timeline spread across my table, and a sickening clarity washed over me. If he had been hiding money since the beginning, what exactly had he been preparing for all these years? The answer felt close enough to touch. And yet so horrifying I wasn't sure I wanted to. I barely slept. The next morning, I drove straight to the county records office, my pulse thudding in my throat the entire ride. I needed answers, real, concrete answers, not suspicion, not gut feelings. Facts. The clerk pulled up the property record using the parcel number I found in Daniel's files. She rotated the monitor toward me. There it was. A plot of rural land registered under Daniel Hale alone. Purchased 15 years ago. Paid in full. No mortgage. No structures. Just woods. A long dirt access road. Insurance coverage unusually high for undeveloped land. It was like staring at a bruise on our marriage I hadn't known existed. I asked the clerk if anyone else had inquired about the property recently. She hesitated, checking the screen again, then nodded. Yes, a woman. A few months ago. My stomach twisted. I didn't need her name. I already knew. The mistress had been there. Recently. My hands began to shake. I drove home gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles paled. When I walked into the house, my daughter was on the couch eating cereal, still in pajamas, face swollen from crying the night before. "Mom? Are you okay?" she asked gently. I sat beside her, trying to sound stronger than I felt. I need to ask you something. It's important. She tensed, spoon halfway to her mouth. Do you remember ever going somewhere, in the woods? With your father? Maybe when you were younger? She furrowed her brows. Yeah. A few times. He said he wanted to show me something. She paused, thinking. He said one day it would be ours. A cold wave washed through me. Ours? I repeated. Yeah. But he said you didn't need to know about it yet. I felt the ground tilt under me. She didn't say much else, just scattered childhood memories. A long drive. A dirt road. A small clearing. Her dad telling her to keep it a secret because it was part of the future. Part of whose future? Mine? His? Theirs? I excused myself and walked to the bathroom, locking the door as quietly as possible. My breath hitched in uneven bursts as the pieces rearranged in my mind. The land wasn't an affair hideout. It wasn't a romantic escape. It was part of something older, deeper, intentional. Something Daniel had been weaving long before the mistress even existed. And yet the mistress had visited it. Which meant she was part of that plan. And whatever future he promised her didn't include me. But what future did he envision, and why did he hide it for 15 years? I didn't bother with makeup. I didn't bother brushing my hair. I just grabbed the envelope, the USB drive, my phone, and drove straight to the tallest law firm in the city, my pulse pounding harder with every floor the elevator climbed. My college friend, Alana Reyes, was already waiting. She'd rearranged her entire morning the moment she heard my voice the night before. When I stepped into her office, she took one look at me and locked the door behind us. Tell me everything, she said. And I did. The documents. The property. The affair timeline. The forged signatures. The disturbing email. The trust fund created 15 years ago. The mistress's possible involvement in previous asset extractions. I laid it all out like broken glass on her desk. Alana listened without interrupting, her expression sharpening with each new detail. She paced slowly, muttering legal terms under her breath, stopping occasionally to ask clarifying questions. When I showed her the bank statements and beneficiary forms, she froze. Marissa, this isn't a messy divorce, she finally said. This is a criminal conspiracy. The words punched the air out of my lungs. She sat down, leaning forward, her voice low and urgent. Your husband has been funneling assets into accounts you didn't know existed. Some of these transfers are felonies, fraud, evasion, misappropriation of marital funds. And the forged signatures? That's a Class C felony by itself. If he's listed another woman as beneficiary to a high-value insurance policy without your knowledge, this could be extremely dangerous. Dangerous. She said it again. Like she needed me to absorb it. Marissa, you need protection. Immediately. Legally and physically. I gripped the edge of the table. What do I do? She exhaled sharply, the kind of breath lawyers release before choosing war. First, we file emergency injunctions. Asset freezes. A temporary restraining order if necessary. If he's planning to move money again, we need to stop him before he drains anything else. I nodded, swallowing hard. Second, she continued, we secure your financial rights. The trust, the land, the insurance, everything. If he's preparing a long-term exit strategy, we blow it up. And third? I whispered. She stared straight into my eyes. Third, we prepare for retaliation. Because once Daniel realizes you blocked his plans, he's going to come after you. And not just emotionally. A tremor ran up my spine. I signed everything she slid in front of me. Petitions. Motions. Emergency filings. She uploaded documents to judges, escalated freeze requests to banks, and sent encrypted emails to financial institutions. I watched her transform from my old college friend into a lethal weapon aimed directly at the man I once thought was my future. Just before I left, she touched my hand gently. Marissa. I need you to brace yourself. The moment he finds out what we've done? She paused. He won't react rationally. A chill rippled down my arms. I was unloading groceries when I heard the front door slam so hard the walls shook. Then his voice roared through the house. Marissa. Get down here right now. My blood iced. He knew. I wiped my palms on my jeans, forcing myself to breathe, and stepped into the hallway just as Daniel stormed toward me. His face was a violent red, sweat beading at his temples, phone clutched so tightly in his fist I thought the screen might crack. What did you do? He hissed. I didn't answer. He stepped closer, breath hot with fury. The bank just called me. They said my accounts, are frozen. All of them. He jabbed a finger into my shoulder. You think you're smart? You think you can sabotage me? I did what I had to, I said quietly. He exploded. You had no right, he shouted so loudly the windows rattled. You've ruined everything. Do you have any idea what you've done? I held my ground. They were marital assets. And you were trying to move them illegally. That set him off like gasoline on fire. He grabbed the nearest chair and hurled it across the room. It crashed into the wall, splintering the wood. I flinched despite myself. Upstairs, I heard footsteps, my daughter's terrified scramble across the floor. He pointed at me, shaking. You're going to UNFREZE them. Today. Right now. You're calling whoever you hired and you're fixing this. I didn't move. I didn't blink. I didn't give him the satisfaction. I'm not undoing anything, I said. Daniel's eyes widened with a shock I didn't expect, like he couldn't fathom the version of me standing in front of him. You're making a mistake, he growled, voice low and dangerous. I can destroy you. You already tried. He lunged forward as if he might grab me, but I lifted my phone, thumb over the record button. His whole body jerked to a stop. I tilted the screen so he could see the red circle. Recording. His face twisted into something feral. You're recording me? You just threw a chair at me, Daniel. You're screaming. You're threatening me. I'm protecting myself. He stepped back, hair disheveled, chest heaving. You think this will save you? He spat. You think anyone will believe you over me? I didn't answer. He paced like a caged animal, running his hands through his hair, muttering curses under his breath. Then, quietly, almost too quietly, he said. This isn't over. I met his glare with steady eyes. No. It's not. He stormed out of the house, slamming the door so hard a picture frame fell from the wall. I waited until I heard his car peel out of the driveway before I finally allowed myself to breathe again. My hands were still shaking when I stopped the recording. But beneath the fear, something stronger simmered. Because Daniel had no idea. I had recordings of much worse. I didn't sleep that night, not even for a moment. Not after the screaming. Not after the chair against the wall. Not after watching the man I'd built a life with morph into something unrecognizable. Instead, I sat at the dining table, laptop open, every document I'd collected spread out like a crime board. Because that's what it was now, a crime. A conspiracy. A plan I was only beginning to unravel. But the truth didn't hit me until I opened the folder labeled insurance. The largest policy, $3 million, listed a beneficiary. Not me. Not our daughter. Lena Voss. My breath hitched so violently I had to grip the table to steady myself. I reread the document, running my finger under every line like I could force the words to rearrange themselves. They didn't. The purchase date was 9 months ago, right around the time he stopped touching me, stopped speaking to me unless necessary, stopped looking at me like a human being. Why would he take out such a massive policy? Why would he give it to her? Why would he hide it? Then I saw the trigger clause. The policy only paid out under specific circumstances. Accidental death. Unnatural causes. Or disappearance with presumed death. My throat closed. The room seemed to tilt sideways as nausea rolled through me. This wasn't about divorce. This wasn't about starting over. This was about money. About the future he promised her. About a payday he had engineered in silence while sleeping beside me. A sickening thought slithered through my mind. If I died, he wouldn't need a divorce. If I disappeared, he wouldn't lose anything. He would gain $3 million. Handed to his mistress. My pulse hammered in my ears. I forced myself to keep reading. And then I saw it. A signature. My name. But I never signed this. It was forged. Sloppy enough for Alana to use in court. Strategic enough for Daniel to risk everything. I forwarded the file to Alana immediately. Within minutes she was calling me, voice tight with controlled fury. Marissa, listen to me. You need to stay somewhere safe. Tonight. Because of the policy? I whispered. Because the only reason a spouse secretly lists their mistress as beneficiary is if they're planning for the spouse to be removed. A cold ripple slid down my spine. I'm not trying to scare you, she continued. But you need to understand something, this is no longer financial fraud. This is motive. I stared at the forged signature glowing on my screen. Motive. Purpose. Intent. And suddenly, the sabotage. The land. The trust. The mistress. The 15-year paper trail. None of it felt random anymore. If Daniel realized I had discovered this policy, what would he do? How far would he go? And was he already preparing for something much darker than divorce? I shouldn't have gone alone. Alana told me not to. My daughter begged me not to. Every instinct in my body warned me not to. But fear does something strange when mixed with rage, it becomes momentum. And momentum carried me straight to Lena Voss's apartment. It was a sleek high-rise in the expensive part of the city, all glass and metal, nothing like the shabby, struggling barista story she had fed Daniel. I stood outside her door, my pulse loud enough to drown out my thoughts. I knocked once. The door opened almost immediately, as if she were expecting me. Lena leaned against the frame, wearing silk shorts and an oversized shirt that wasn't hers. Probably Daniel's. Her face lit up with a slow, amused smile. Well, she purred. The wife. The word dripped with mockery. I held up a copy of the insurance policy. Why am I the only person who didn't know about this? She didn't even blink. Because you were never supposed to. Her calmness, her absolute lack of shame, hit me harder than the documents. She stepped aside and gestured inside. I hesitated, then walked in. The place was spotless, curated, sterile. A home you only lived in temporarily. A hideout. Lena crossed her arms and leaned against the counter. You've been busy, she said, tapping the edge of the policy. Freezing accounts. Digging through documents. That must have taken guts. This wasn't a game, I snapped. Daniel forged my signature. He hid assets. He listed you on a $3 million policy. Her smile widened. He only does that for women he wants a future with. Something inside me snapped, but she wasn't finished. Shame you ruined the timeline, she added lightly. My stomach tightened. Timeline? She tilted her head, studying me like I was an insect pinned to a display. You really don't know, do you? My throat dried. Know what? Her eyes glimmered with an unsettling mix of confidence and pity. You were never supposed to see those documents yet. Cold dread seeped into my bones. She pushed off the counter and walked toward me slowly, every step deliberate. Daniel and I had plans. Long-term plans. You were temporary. Temporary. The word sliced deeper than any affair ever could. I forced my voice steady. What plans? She reached out, gently tucking a loose strand of hair behind my ear like I was a child she was soothing. You'll find out soon enough, she whispered. Your time is almost up. I jerked back. She laughed softly, sweet, musical, venomous. Oh, relax, Marissa. I'm not here to hurt you. I don't need to. You're going to unravel all on your own. My heart hammered against my ribs. Because she wasn't threatening me. She was promising something. Something Daniel had started. And she was finishing. I left Lena's apartment trembling, not from fear, but from the sickening calm in her voice. Your time is almost up. The words echoed in my skull all the way home. That night, I triple-checked the locks. Closed every curtain. Left lights on in every room. My daughter slept at a friend's house, thankfully, because whatever was coming, I didn't want her anywhere near it. Around 1:14 a.m., I jolted awake to the sound of metal scraping outside. I froze. Listened. Held my breath. Another scrape. Closer this time. I crept to the window and peeked through the blinds. My car, parked under the street lamp, had its hood slightly open. My pulse blasted in my ears. I grabbed a flashlight and stepped outside, phone in hand, ready to call 911. The night was still, unnervingly quiet. When I reached the car and lifted the hood fully, my stomach dropped. Wires cut. Fuel line sliced. A screw partially removed from the brake caliper. Not vandalism. Not kids messing around. Sabotage. Professional. Clean. Specific. Exactly the kind of accident that could turn fatal on a highway. I stumbled back, lungs constricting. My hand shook so violently the flashlight beam jittered across the driveway. I spun around, scanning shadows, expecting someone to leap out. No one did. But the message was clear. Stop digging. Stop interfering. Stop surviving. I raced back inside, slammed the door, and called the police. 2 officers arrived, took photos, made vague noises about random tampering. But their eyes said it all, they didn't believe me. Or worse, they didn't care. After they left, I tried to calm myself, pacing the living room while dialing Alana. She told me not to stay there another second, to pack a bag and go somewhere with cameras, witnesses, people. I grabbed a suitcase, rushed outside, and stopped dead in my tracks. Someone had left a message on my windshield. Big, bold, streaked in red across the glass. Stop digging. The letters dripped downward like blood. My knees weakened. A cold shiver crawled up my spine. Someone had been here. Right outside my home. Close enough to touch my car. Close enough to watch me through a window. This wasn't Daniel losing control. This wasn't Lena playing games. This was coordinated. Planned. And escalating. I backed away slowly, chest tightening, fingers numb around the suitcase handle. Because if they wanted me scared, it was working. But fear wasn't going to stop me now. Not after what I discovered next. I didn't bother unpacking the suitcase. I didn't bother turning off the lights. I just paced the living room with shaking hands, replaying the message on my windshield over and over. Stop digging. Every instinct screamed at me to run. But something colder, sharper, louder rooted me in place. If they were willing to sabotage my car, what else were they willing to do? My answer came the next morning. I opened the front door to grab the newspaper, and froze. A plain white envelope lay on the welcome mat. No stamp. No name. No handwriting. Just my address typed neatly on a label. Someone had walked right up to my door. Again. My hands trembled as I picked it up. Inside was a single object. A USB drive. No note. No instructions. No explanation. I locked the door, closed every curtain, and plugged it into my laptop with a breath held so tight it hurt. A single folder appeared. Listen. My blood chilled. I clicked. Inside were 3 audio files, each just a few minutes long. I pressed play. At first, it was static. Then voices. Clear. Close. Intense. Daniel's voice. And hers. I turned the volume up, heart pounding so violently the sound nearly drowned their words. Daniel, we need to move the timeline up. She's getting suspicious. Lena, no, you're getting sloppy. I told you she'd look eventually. Daniel, I don't care. I want out now. I want the money. Just tell me the plan again. Lena, and I told you, we can't do anything until the documents are in place. She has to be unable to contest. Daniel, you said she wouldn't find anything. Lena, well, she did. Daniel, then remove her from the equation. Lena, and risk everything? No. We wait until the cabin is ready. Daniel, it's been ready for months. Lena, then we need to be careful. If we push too fast, someone might notice. I pressed pause, hand clamped over my mouth. The cabin. The timeline. Remove her from the equation. I forced myself to hit play again. Daniel, I can't stand living with her. Just give me the word. Lena, not until the insurance activates. Daniel, I signed everything. Lena, she didn't. Daniel, that's what the forge was for. Lena, badly done. They'll notice. Daniel, so fix it. Lena, I'm not risking prison for you. Follow the plan. The recording ended with the sound of a door slamming. I stared at the laptop screen, heart ricocheting off my ribs. Someone had recorded them, someone close enough to overhear intimate, dangerous conversations. But who? A neighbor? A disgruntled partner? Someone Daniel betrayed? Or someone working with them, now working against them? My breath came in shallow bursts. Because whoever delivered that USB didn't want me dead. Not yet. They wanted me informed. But why? To warn me? To manipulate me? To bait me into making the next move? I didn't know. But one thing was clear. Someone else was involved. Someone watching everything. Someone neither Daniel nor Lena had accounted for. And they had just inserted themselves into the game. I should have known the call was coming. I just didn't expect it so soon, or so venomous. My phone rang at 7:12 a.m. the next morning. His mother. Judith Hale. A woman who had always treated me like I was borrowing her son rather than building a life with him. I answered reluctantly. Marissa, she said, voice dripping with that condescending sweetness she reserved for waiters, children, and me. I heard there was a scene at the graduation. So she knew. Of course she knew. I didn't respond. She sighed dramatically. I really wish you had behaved better. Daniel was very upset. I almost choked. He was upset? Now, she said lightly, there's no need to point fingers. What matters is preventing further embarrassment for the family. Family. Meaning his family. Not mine. Not our daughter. Definitely not me. Judith, I said slowly, Daniel forged my signature. He hid assets. He. She cut me off sharply. I told him you'd overreact. This is why he didn't want to include you. My stomach lurched. Didn't want to include me in what? She continued before I could ask. Listen carefully, Marissa. Whatever nonsense you've started with courts and lawyers, you need to stop. Immediately. There it was. The pressure. The guilt. The manipulation wrapped in motherly faux concern. Daniel is under a great deal of stress, she went on. And if he loses financially, it will be because you pushed him too far. I nearly dropped the phone. Judith, I said, voice shaking with a cocktail of rage and disbelief, he planned to leave me with nothing. He planned. Another interruption. Enough. You have no idea what Daniel has been preparing. None. And frankly, you were never supposed to. He told me months ago this would all be handled quietly. My breath caught. Months. He'd been planning my removal, financially, legally, maybe even physically, for months, and she'd known. I swallowed hard. He told you about the land? The trust? The insurance policy? Silence. Long. Heavy. Telling. Then her voice softened into something chillingly polite. You should focus on moving on with dignity. Don't make this uglier than it already is. I felt something inside me snap, a final thread. Judith, I whispered, what exactly did Daniel tell you I wasn't supposed to find? She inhaled sharply. And then, carelessly, arrogantly, she slipped. Oh, Marissa, if you'd minded your place, you never would have forced his timeline. My heart slammed against my ribs. Timeline. Again. There it was. The confirmation. She knew about it. She knew it was planned. She knew I wasn't meant to find out. But what else did she know? And why did she sound so confident that Daniel's plan wasn't over? After Judith's call, I couldn't sit still. I paced the living room, replaying her words, her smug tone, the way timeline slipped out like she forgot it was a secret. Every instinct screamed there was more, much more, that Daniel's family knew. By noon, I needed air. Noise. People. Anything that wasn't silence. I went to a small cafe downtown, ordered tea I didn't want, and sat near the window. I was halfway through convincing myself I was safe when two shadows fell across my table. I looked up. Daniel's brother, Mark, and his sister, Evelyn, slid into the booth across from me without asking. My stomach dropped. Evelyn crossed her legs, leaning forward with a rehearsed smile. We need to talk. Mark didn't bother with politeness. You're destroying our family. I blinked. Daniel forged my signature, hid assets, listed his mistress as a beneficiary. Mark slammed his fist on the table. Don't play the victim. The cafe went silent for a moment before normal chatter resumed. My pulse hammered. Evelyn gave me a pitying look that didn't reach her eyes. Marissa, we know you're upset. But Daniel told us everything. You're taking this too far. Too far? I laughed under my breath. He tried to erase me. Evelyn leaned in, voice low. If you keep pursuing legal action, we will go public with what he told us. I tensed. Which is? Mark smiled, sharp, cruel. That you're unstable. That you've had outbursts. He has statements prepared. I froze. Statements. Plural. Evelyn nodded sympathetically. We signed them already. In case the court needs them. My throat tightened. You signed false statements about me? It's for Daniel's protection, she said simply. My vision swam for a moment. I gripped the edge of the table to ground myself. And, Mark added casually, if you keep pushing him, he'll have no choice but to mention the will. I stiffened. What will? They exchanged a glance, realizing they'd said too much. But Mark was already in too deep to stop. He updated it months ago. You really didn't know? A cold wave washed over me. No. I didn't know. Daniel hadn't mentioned any will in years. Evelyn stood, smoothing her blouse. Just back off, Marissa. This is bigger than you understand. If you keep fighting him, you'll lose more than money. Mark tossed a business card onto the table. Call him. Make peace. Quietly. Then they left as quickly as they came. I sat frozen in the booth, tea untouched, heart pounding like a warning drum. A will. New statements. His family closing ranks around him. And all of it meant one thing. Daniel hadn't just prepared to leave me. He'd prepared a narrative. A weaponized story. For the day things turned against him. But what exactly did that new will say? And why was I never meant to see it? I barely made it home before panic turned into pure, electric fury. A new will. Statements. A coordinated family attack. A timeline they kept slipping about like it was common knowledge. I went straight to the filing cabinet in Daniel's office. He'd always assumed I was too emotional to look through legal documents, his favorite lie. But I'd learned to read his patterns. His arrogance was a roadmap. I dug through folders, binders, tax envelopes, nothing. Then I saw a file tucked behind a stack of old manuals. Thinner than the rest. Labeled in his handwriting. Estate, private. My hands trembled as I opened it. There it was. A neatly typed, fully notarized will dated 8 months ago. His signature. 2 witness signatures. A stamp. Everything looked legitimate. Except the contents. My name appeared only once. To my wife, Marissa Hale, I leave nothing due to her inability to manage assets responsibly. Inability. To manage assets. Responsibly. A false allegation written as fact. And the rest? Everything, our home, savings, stocks, the land, his life insurance. All of it. Went to Lena Voss. Every line was a punch to the gut. Every clause a strategic execution. But then I saw something that made my breath stop. One of the witness signatures belonged to someone very familiar. Judith Hale. His mother. The other signature. My eyes narrowed. My name. My handwriting. Perfectly replicated. Except I never signed it. A forged signature. Again. This wasn't legal estate planning. This was preparation. A coordinated erasure of my existence from the financial world. And it got worse. Attached to the back of the will was a handwritten note. Daniel's handwriting. Sloppy. Rushed. Arrogant. Once the transfer is done, the property becomes the fallback. L can handle the rest. M will be out of the picture by then. Out of the picture. Alternatives flashed through my mind: exile, manipulation, fraud. But the insurance policy. The sabotage. The recordings. This was life or death planning. I sank into his desk chair, the room spinning. Daniel hadn't simply planned to leave me. He had planned to replace me. With legal documentation. With signatures. With witnesses. With an entire narrative built on lies and forged evidence. And his mother had helped him. His siblings were prepared to testify. His mistress was positioned to inherit everything. But there was one thing he didn't anticipate. That I would find the will. That I would read it. That I would finally see exactly how far he was willing to go. And one terrifying question echoed in my mind. If his new will was already in place, what was the next step meant to accomplish? And how close had I come to fulfilling it? The will shook me in a way nothing else had, not the affair, not the money transfers, not even the sabotage. Because the will wasn't a plan to leave me. It was a plan to erase me. The moment I steadied my breathing enough to form full sentences, I called Alana. She heard the tremor in my voice the second she picked up. I found his new will, I whispered. Silence. Then a sharp inhale. Tell me everything. I did. The forged signature. His mother's involvement. The transfer of all assets to Lena. The note about me being out of the picture. When I finished, Alana didn't speak for several seconds. Then. Get dressed. Come to my office. Now. I grabbed the will, the envelope, and the USB drive, and drove with shaking hands. When I arrived, Alana pulled me straight into her conference room, locking the door behind us. She spread the documents out like a detective building a caseboard. Marissa, she said finally, voice low and controlled, this is no longer a divorce situation. This is criminal intent. Fraud. Conspiracy. Possibly attempted insurance exploitation. And depending on how far he planned to go, maybe worse. Worse. The word hung in the room like smoke. So what do we do? I asked. She straightened, activating a side of herself I had never seen, the iron-spined, courtroom killer version of her. We're filing criminal charges, she said. Today. What charges? She ticked them off one by one. Forgery. Fraud. Misuse of marital assets. Attempted financial coercion. Estate tampering. Conspiracy with a non-spouse to unlawfully obtain marital property. Coercive control. Possible insurance fraud. Possible endangerment. My stomach nodded, but she wasn't done. And depending on what else surfaces? We may add attempted wrongdoing related to personal harm. I swallowed hard. Alana, do you really think he was planning to hurt me? She looked at me with painful gentleness. The insurance policy had a payout only in cases of your death or disappearance. A beat. And the will makes you financially irrelevant. Everything points to a coordinated removal. My hands shook so badly I tucked them under the table to hide it. Within hours, Alana had filed emergency motions, criminal complaints, and injunctions. She contacted law enforcement directly, submitting the forged will as primary evidence. This will force their hand, she told me. They'll have to investigate. What happens when Daniel finds out? I asked. She didn't sugarcoat it. He'll panic. He'll lash out. He'll do something reckless. Is that good for us? In court? Yes. She paused. But in real life? No. A cold shiver crawled up my spine. What do I do? She touched my hand gently. Stay surrounded by people. Don't be alone. And Marissa? Yes? You need to prepare yourself. For what? She met my eyes with devastating seriousness. For Daniel to disappear the moment he served. I felt the air leave my lungs. Daniel was served 3 days later. But I didn't get the satisfaction of watching it happen, because just as Alana predicted, the moment the courts made contact, he vanished. Phone off. Car gone. Job no call, no show. His family shocked but suspiciously unhelpful. But Lena? Lena didn't get the luxury of running. The subpoena pinned her like a butterfly under glass. The courthouse was colder than I expected. My hands sweated despite the air conditioning. Every seat felt too hard, every light too bright. I sat beside Alana as Lena was escorted to the witness stand. She walked with confidence at first, head high, lips glossy, her designer heels clicking a slow, disdainful rhythm. But when the bailiff told her to raise her right hand and swear to tell the truth, I saw the first crack. Her fingers trembled. Alana leaned toward me. Watch her eyes. She'll give herself away before she gives us anything. And she did. When Alana began, her tone was ice. Ms. Voss, do you know Daniel Hale? A coy smile. Yes. How long have you known him? A little over 3 years. Are you aware that he listed you as beneficiary on a $3 million life insurance policy? Lena hesitated just long enough to expose the lie. Yes. Daniel wanted to make sure I was taken care of. And you accepted the role of sole beneficiary? Yes. Alana clicked her pen. Did you know he is still legally married? Lena stiffened. That's between them. No, Alana said sharply, it's between us. The judge raised an eyebrow. Lena's eyes darted toward the back of the courtroom, quick, nervous, searching for someone. But Daniel wasn't there. And whoever she was looking for, didn't reveal themselves. Alana slid a document onto the evidence table. And did you know this policy only pays out in cases of accidental death or disappearance? Lena swallowed. I don't know all the details. Let me help you, Alana said calmly. Did you know Daniel forged his wife's signature? Silence. Did you know he created a new will making you the sole heir? A muscle twitched in Lena's jaw. Did you? Lena cracked. Daniel told me he and his wife were done, she snapped. He told me she was unstable. That she couldn't manage money. That she never supported him. He said. He said what? Alana pushed. Her voice dropped to a brittle whisper. He said she wouldn't be in the picture much longer. My stomach twisted. The courtroom buzzed with murmurs. And what did you think he meant by that? Alana asked. Lena looked toward the back again, the same direction as before, her eyes wide, terrified, searching for someone who still hadn't appeared. I don't know, she stammered. I thought it meant divorce. Did it? Alana asked. A beat. Or did Daniel tell you about the cabin? Lena's face drained to white. She knew. She absolutely knew. And the way she kept glancing behind me. The way her fear grew with every question. Someone else was in this. Someone she feared more than losing everything. And whoever it was. They were sitting silently in the courtroom. Watching. I felt the hairs on my arms rise before I even turned. It was like the temperature dropped behind me, just enough for instinct to whisper. You're being watched. But I didn't turn around. Not yet. I watched Lena instead. Because her fear wasn't for Daniel. It wasn't for herself. It was focused like a laser at something, someone, behind me. Her breathing sped up. Her eyes flicked upward, downward, then away. Avoidance. Submission. Recognition. A predator had entered the room. Alana noticed the shift too. She paused mid-question, studying Lena like a biologist examining a dangerous animal. Ms. Voss, she said quietly, who are you looking at? Lena's lips parted, but no sound came out. She shook her head once, violently, like the truth was trying to force its way out of her throat and she was choking it back. That's when the judge cleared his throat. There will be order in the court, he warned, though even he followed Lena's gaze. Finally, unable to stand the tension burning down my spine, I turned. At the very back of the courtroom, in the far corner seat, sat a man I had never seen before. Tall. Broad-shouldered. Dark suit. Expression blank, too blank. Like someone who had practiced emotionlessness. He wasn't looking at the judge. Or Alana. Or the bailiff. He was staring directly at Lena. Unblinking. Predatory. And she was shrinking beneath that gaze. A chill crawled slowly up my back, settling at the base of my skull. I whispered to Alana, who is that? She followed my gaze. Her eyes narrowed. Not law enforcement, she murmured. Not family. Not one of ours. Then who? Before I could finish, the man finally tore his eyes from Lena, and locked them onto me. My breath stopped. Not hitched, stopped. His stare wasn't curious. It wasn't surprised. It wasn't even hostile. It was evaluative. Measuring. As if he were trying to determine how much I knew. Or how far I would go. The judge dismissed Lena for a recess. She nearly bolted from the stand, keeping her head down as she rushed past me. I expected her to run straight out of the courtroom. But she didn't. She made a sharp turn. And walked directly toward the man in the back. Then she stopped 2 feet from him. Her voice shook so badly I almost didn't hear it. You said you wouldn't come. The man didn't respond at first. He simply stood, towering over her. Then he leaned forward slightly, speaking so softly I couldn't make out the words. But whatever he whispered made Lena's knees buckle. She clutched the bench for support. He walked past her, past the aisle, past the rows of seats. And then he paused when he reached me. We stood eye to eye for a moment that stretched too long. His voice was low, deep, unsettlingly calm. "Mrs. Hale," he said. "We should talk." My pulse crashed in my ears. "Who are you?" I whispered. He slipped a card into my hand without looking down. "Your husband hired me," he said. My stomach dropped. A private investigator. One who didn't look like he followed cheating spouses. One who looked like he followed people who went missing. He held my gaze, expression unreadable. "And I think," he murmured, "it's time you heard what he hired me to do." My knees weakened. Because the final truth wasn't coming from Daniel. Or Lena. Or his family. It was coming from the man Daniel trusted with secrets he didn't write down. I didn't want to follow him. Every instinct screamed to run the other way, but my legs moved like they were obeying a different master, truth. The PI walked with a steady, terrifying calm, leading me to a quiet corner of the courthouse lobby. "Start talking," I said, voice thin. He studied me for a moment, as if weighing whether I could handle what he was about to say. "My name is Callum Royce," he said. "Daniel hired me 18 months ago." 18? My breath caught. "To follow Lena?" "No." His expression didn't change. "To follow you." The words hollowed me out. "He paid me to track your routines," Callum continued. "Places you go. Roads you take. Habits, patterns, vulnerabilities." My mouth went dry. "Why?" Callum hesitated. "He said he wanted to protect you. That you were anxious, forgetful, sometimes careless." He framed it as concern. "But it wasn't concern," I whispered. "No." He lowered his voice. "It was preparation." My pulse hammered. "For what?" He reached into a folder and pulled out a stack of printed reports, my reports. My grocery times. My gym visits. My work schedule. The roads I preferred when driving home at night. He asked for scenarios, Callum said. Hypothetical vulnerabilities. Situations where an accident might happen if someone wasn't careful. Loose brakes. Unlit backroads. Blind curves. My stomach twisted. Did he say why he needed those scenarios? Callum shook his head. He never said it outright. But I've been in this job long enough to know when a client's not trying to prevent an accident, he's looking for ways to explain one. I covered my mouth, nausea rising. "But that's not the part you need to hear most," Callum added. I forced my shaking hands to lower. "Then what?" Callum leaned closer. "Daniel disappeared the moment the charges hit. But he didn't run blindly. He ran to a pattern." "A pattern?" I whispered. He nodded and opened a map, marked with pins, dates, mileage logs. "I traced his last known movements," Callum said. "He used burner phones, rental cars, cash withdrawals. But one place kept coming up. Again and again. A cold dread seeped into my spine. "The property," I said. He nodded once. "Yes. He's been going to that land for months. Sometimes alone. Sometimes with Lena. Sometimes." Callum held my gaze. "With other people." "Other people?" My voice cracked. "Who?" "Hard to say. They didn't use names. But I traced footprints. Supplies. Long stays. Planning." My heartbeat thudded in my throat. "Callum, what were they planning out there?" He hesitated too long. "Something deliberate," he said finally. "Something they expected to happen soon. Something they called the transition." I felt the world tilt beneath me. "And that cabin," he added, "is where he'll go next. If he isn't already there." My breath caught. Because if Daniel was at the cabin, then the nightmare wasn't ending. It was beginning. The drive to the property felt like descending into another world, one thick with dread, old secrets, and something colder than fear. Callum drove ahead in his truck while I followed behind, the rural highway stretching into endless gray. The city disappeared. Street lights vanished. Self-service dropped to nothing. I gripped the steering wheel until my hands ached. Finally, Callum turned onto a narrow dirt road, flanked by towering pines that swallowed the last trace of sunlight. I followed slowly, headlights cutting through the darkness like a blade. After another mile, the trees opened into a clearing. And there it was. A cabin. Small. Wooden. Windows boarded from the inside. No electricity, no mailbox, no life. It looked abandoned, but not forgotten. Callum signaled for me to stay behind him. I nodded, heart jackhammering in my chest. We approached carefully. Every step made dead leaves crackle underfoot, sounding too loud in the suffocating quiet. The air carried the sharp smell of damp earth and something metallic, fear, maybe. When we reached the porch, Callum tried the door. Unlocked. He glanced at me. Stay behind me. And don't touch anything. Inside, the air was stale. Dust swirled in the beam of Callum's flashlight. A single table stood at the center, covered with papers weighted by rocks. A camping lantern sat nearby. A cot in the corner. No signs of warmth. No signs of comfort. Just planning. I moved closer to the table, drawn like a moth to a flame. And what I saw made my breath stop. Maps of our city. Highlighted routes, my routes. Circled intersections. Timing notes. Vehicle types. Weather considerations. Scenario outlines. Accident simulations. Projected outcomes. Kill plans disguised as misfortune. Callum whispered, he didn't just fantasize about leaving you, he orchestrated contingencies. My knees threatened to give out. There were also receipts, supplies bought in cash, burner phones, trash bags, rope, gloves. And at the top of the pile, a printed draft of the forged will. I didn't realize I was crying until a tear splashed onto the map. What was he doing here? I whispered. Callum's jaw tightened. Preparing. A cold shiver crawled up my spine. Preparing for what? He hesitated before answering. For your removal. And his escape. My head spun. But why wait? Why drag it out? Because something spooked him, Callum said. Someone warned him you were looking. Someone messed with the transfers earlier than planned. That threw everything off. Someone. Not me. Before I could respond, Callum suddenly raised a hand, silencing me. Footprints. Fresh ones. Leading away from the cabin. Not toward it. He crouched, inspecting the dirt. Someone was here within the last 12 hours. My throat tightened. Daniel? Callum didn't answer. Because the truth was worse. There were two sets of footprints. One large. One small. Both fresh. Both recent. And both leading into the woods. Callum followed the footprints first, silent, focused, scanning every indentation in the dirt as if the ground itself were whispering secrets. I stayed close behind, heart hammering, eyes darting between the shadows of the trees. Two sets. One heavy and long, Daniel's stride. One lighter, quicker, Lena's. They hadn't come to the cabin to stay. They'd come to take something, or leave something. After about 30 yards, the track stopped abruptly at a patch of disturbed pine needles. Callum crouched, brushing them aside. He froze. Marissa, come here. My legs felt like concrete, but I forced myself to step forward. Beneath the pine needles was a metal box, half buried, half exposed. Callum lifted it carefully and cracked it open. Inside was a folded sheet of paper. My stomach twisted before he even handed it to me. I unfolded it with shaking fingers. It was Daniel's handwriting. Slanted. Impatient. Angry. If you're reading this, it's already too late. The edges of the paper trembled in my grip. What does that mean? I whispered. Callum took the note back, scanning it. His face tightened. It means he knew we'd eventually find this place. But why leave it here at all? Daniel doesn't do anything without reason, Callum said. This wasn't a threat. It was a signal. A signal to who? My voice cracked. To us? No, he said quietly. To her. Or to someone else involved. The wind rustled the trees above us, making the branches shiver like skeletal fingers. Callum stood abruptly. We need to search the cabin one more time. We walked back quickly, adrenaline turning the air sharp and thin. Inside, Callum scanned the shelves, the corners, the floorboards. Then something near the cot caught his eye. A small, black device wedged between the wall slats. He pried it out. A motion sensor. My heart slammed. Please tell me that's old. He shook his head. It's active. As if on cue. A piercing sound echoed faintly in the woods. Not close. Not far. Mechanical. Repeating. Callum's expression hardened. It's a remote alarm. Something triggered it. Us? I whispered. No, he listened carefully. This alarm isn't inside the cabin. It's deeper in the woods. My breath hitched. Daniel's watching us, I whispered. Maybe, Callum said. Or someone is watching for him. The realization washed over me like ice water. We weren't alone out here. Whoever triggered that alarm wasn't running away. They were circling. Closing in. Callum grabbed my wrist, not harshly, but urgently. We have to leave. Now. We'll call the sheriff from the road. But, what if he's still here? I asked. Callum replied without hesitation. If he is, then staying here means giving him exactly what he wants. We stepped outside, breath visible in the cooling air. And that's when I felt it. A sensation that someone was standing just out of sight. Watching. Waiting. The forest felt alive with eyes. We ran. Callum followed the footprints first, silent, focused, scanning every indentation in the dirt as if the ground itself were whispering secrets. I stayed close behind, heart hammering, eyes darting between the shadows of the trees. 2 sets. One heavy and long, Daniel's stride. One lighter, quicker, Lena's. They hadn't come to the cabin to stay. They'd come to take something, or leave something. After about 30 yards, the track stopped abruptly at a patch of disturbed pine needles. Callum crouched, brushing them aside. He froze. Marissa, come here. My legs felt like concrete, but I forced myself to step forward. Beneath the pine needles was a metal box, half buried, half exposed. Callum lifted it carefully and cracked it open. Inside was a folded sheet of paper. My stomach twisted before he even handed it to me. I unfolded it with shaking fingers. It was Daniel's handwriting. Slanted. Impatient. Angry. If you're reading this, it's already too late. The edges of the paper trembled in my grip. What does that mean? I whispered. Callum took the note back, scanning it. His face tightened. It means he knew we'd eventually find this place. But why leave it here at all? Daniel doesn't do anything without reason, Callum said. This wasn't a threat. It was a signal. A signal to who? My voice cracked. To us? No, he said quietly. To her. Or to someone else involved. The wind rustled the trees above us, making the branches shiver like skeletal fingers. Callum stood abruptly. We need to search the cabin one more time. We walked back quickly, adrenaline turning the air sharp and thin. Inside, Callum scanned the shelves, the corners, the floorboards. Then something near the cot caught his eye. A small, black device wedged between the wall slats. He pried it out. A motion sensor. My heart slammed. Please tell me that's old. He shook his head. It's active. As if on cue. A piercing sound echoed faintly in the woods. Not close. Not far. Mechanical. Repeating. Callum's expression hardened. It's a remote alarm. Something triggered it. Us? I whispered. No, he listened carefully. This alarm isn't inside the cabin. It's deeper in the woods. My breath hitched. Daniel's watching us, I whispered. Maybe, Callum said. Or someone is watching for him. The realization washed over me like ice water. We weren't alone out here. Whoever triggered that alarm wasn't running away. They were circling. Closing in. Callum grabbed my wrist, not harshly, but urgently. We have to leave. Now. We'll call the sheriff from the road. But, what if he's still here? I asked. Callum replied without hesitation. If he is, then staying here means giving him exactly what he wants. We stepped outside, breath visible in the cooling air. And that's when I felt it. A sensation that someone was standing just out of sight. Watching. Waiting. The forest felt alive with eyes. We ran. Daniel was taken away in handcuffs, thrashing, screaming, swearing he'd fix this and that I'd regret everything. But even after his shouts were swallowed by the sirens and night air, I didn't feel safe. Because his madness had a shadow. A partner. A co-architect. And she wasn't in those police cars. Lena Voss had vanished. Not legally, of course, she wasn't charged yet. But she'd disappeared from her apartment, from her job, from social media. Her cell number went dead. Even the neighbors claimed they hadn't seen her in days. Alana warned me this would happen. When one conspirator is caught, she said, the other scrambles. She'll either run or retaliate. I didn't want to believe retaliation was possible. Then the letter arrived. It came 3 days after Daniel's arrest, tucked between bills in my mailbox. No return address. My name printed in flawless cursive. I recognized the handwriting instantly. My stomach nodded as I tore it open. Inside was a single page. You think Daniel was the problem. He was a tool. A stepping stone. All he wanted was money. But I wanted something bigger. My hands trembled. You destroyed what we built. You ruined years of planning. And now you want peace? No. I'm not done. Not by a long shot. The bottom wasn't signed with her name. Just a single letter. L. A cold wave swept over me. Lena wasn't running. She wasn't scared. She wasn't defeated. She was regrouping. Later that afternoon, Alana called with more news. She filed claims, Alana said, voice tight. Emergency petitions to access Daniel's assets through the will you found. What? But that will was forged. Yes. But she's arguing it was valid before you tampered. She's accusing you of document theft, malicious interference, and emotional coercion. My jaw dropped. She's framing me? She's trying to. This is her last move, forcing a legal war she thinks she can win. A tremor ran down my spine. Can she? Not if we strike first, Alana said. The recordings, the sabotage, the fraud, they all point to her involvement. We'll bury her claims. But Marissa? Yes? Be prepared. She's cornered. And when people like her are cornered, they get dangerous. Dangerous. I already knew that. She'd followed me. Threatened me. Sabotaged my car. Stalked my home. This was no Mistress Scorned. This was a woman with a history of destroying lives. And she wasn't finished with mine. Not until I took back everything. We didn't stop running until the trees thinned and the dirt road came back into view. My lungs burned, my chest tightened, and every instinct screamed at me to get into the car, lock the doors, and never look back. Callum yanked open his truck door, breath sharp. "Get in your car and follow me. Stay close. Don't stop for anything." But before either of us could turn the keys, headlights flared behind us. 2 vehicles. Coming fast. Kicking up gravel, blinding in the dusk. My pulse leapt into my throat. Daniel. It had to be Daniel. Callum stepped in front of my car, hand reaching toward his concealed holster. "Stay down, Marissa." The headlights screeched closer. Then a spotlight snapped on. Not Daniel. Sheriff's deputies. 3 cruisers. Lights spinning red and blue against the darkening sky. Doors flew open. Officers jumped out, weapons raised. "Step out of the vehicle. Hands where we can see them." For a split second, pure confusion paralyzed me. Were they here for me? For Callum? For Daniel? Then I saw movement in the trees across the clearing. A figure. Slow. Unsteady. Hands raised. Daniel. He emerged like a ghost, dirty, wild-eyed, clothes torn, hair matted. A man who looked hunted. Or desperate. Or both. The deputies spotted him instantly. There. On the ground. Now. Daniel didn't comply. Didn't even acknowledge them. His eyes never left me. He stepped forward, ignoring the shouts. "You," he rasped. "This is your fault." My knees weakened. "Daniel, just stop. You ruined everything," he screamed. "Everything was planned. Everything was ready. You weren't supposed to." A deputy tackled him from behind before he could reach me. He fought like a rabid animal. Kicking. Thrashing. Screaming my name like a curse. "It was perfect," he roared. "We had a plan. She promised. You were supposed to." He didn't finish the sentence. An officer wrenched his arms behind him, cuffing him as he writhed on the ground, spitting dirt, eyes wide with a madness I had never seen, not even during the graduation meltdown. Another officer approached me. "Ma'am, are you Marissa Hale?" I nodded numbly. "We've been searching for your husband for 3 days," he said. "The DA issued a warrant. Fraud, forgery, conspiracy. We picked up movement on the property security sensors, registered it as suspicious." A bitter laugh escaped me. "He set those sensors." The deputy blinked. "Well, they helped us find him." I looked at Daniel again. He wasn't shouting anymore. Just breathing hard, eyes full of hatred and something darker. Fear. Because now he knew. Everything he built. Every lie. Every forged document. Every manipulation. Every plan in the woods. Was collapsing. As they dragged him toward the cruiser, a deputy reached into Daniel's pocket and pulled out a folded document bag. "Evidence," the officer said. But I recognized the paper through the plastic immediately. Another will. More forged documents. And at the top, a signature that looked exactly like mine. My blood ran cold. He wasn't done. Not even close. Daniel was taken away in handcuffs, thrashing, screaming, swearing he'd fix this and that I'd regret everything. But even after his shouts were swallowed by the sirens and night air, I didn't feel safe. Because his madness had a shadow. A partner. A co-architect. And she wasn't in those police cars. Lena Voss had vanished. Not legally, of course, she wasn't charged yet. But she'd disappeared from her apartment, from her job, from social media. Her cell number went dead. Even the neighbors claimed they hadn't seen her in days. Alana warned me this would happen. When one conspirator is caught, she said, the other scrambles. She'll either run or retaliate. I didn't want to believe retaliation was possible. Then the letter arrived. It came 3 days after Daniel's arrest, tucked between bills in my mailbox. No return address. My name printed in flawless cursive. I recognized the handwriting instantly. My stomach nodded as I tore it open. Inside was a single page. You think Daniel was the problem? He was a tool. A stepping stone. All he wanted was money. But I wanted something bigger. My hands trembled. You destroyed what we built. You ruined years of planning. And now you want peace? No. I'm not done. Not by a long shot. The bottom wasn't signed with her name. Just a single letter. L. A cold wave swept over me. Lena wasn't running. She wasn't scared. She wasn't defeated. She was regrouping. Later that afternoon, Alana called with more news. She filed claims, Alana said, voice tight. Emergency petitions to access Daniel's assets through the will you found. What? But that will was forged. Yes. But she's arguing it was valid before you tampered. She's accusing you of document theft, malicious interference, and emotional coercion. My jaw dropped. She's framing me? She's trying to. This is her last move, forcing a legal war she thinks she can win. A tremor ran down my spine. Can she? Not if we strike first, Alana said. The recordings, the sabotage, the fraud, they all point to her involvement. We'll bury her claims. But Marissa? Yes? Be prepared. She's cornered. And when people like her are cornered, they get dangerous. Dangerous. I already knew that. She'd followed me. Threatened me. Sabotaged my car. Stalked my home. This was no mistress scorned. This was a woman with a history of destroying lives. And she wasn't finished with mine. Not until I took back everything. I walked into the negotiation room with Alana at my side and a steel spine I didn't know I still possessed. This wasn't divorce mediation. This wasn't a settlement. This was the final battlefield. Lena was already there. She sat at the far end of the table, dressed in a sharp blazer, hair perfectly straight, hands clasped as though she were the injured party. She didn't look at me at first. But when she did, her smile was slow, practiced, poisonous. Marissa, she purred. I hear congratulations are in order. Daniel's been captured. How tragic. I didn't sit. Not yet. Cut the performance, I said. We both know why we're here. Her smile twitched at the corner. Yes. To finalize what Daniel and I built. Alana scoffed. Built? You mean the forged will? The insurance manipulation? The property scheme? The attempted disappearance plan? Lena's jaw tightened. You can't prove anything. I stepped forward, placing a USB drive on the table between us. The same USB I'd received on my doorstep. The one containing the recordings. Her eyes flicked to it, just for a breath, but enough. You're forgetting something, I said. The recordings aren't the only proof. Her expression hardened. You wouldn't dare submit those. I already have, Alana replied, sliding a folder across the table. To the DA, the court, and the insurance company. They know everything. The smallest crack splintered through Lena's composure. I pressed on. And the sabotage? The car tampering? The messages on my windshield? I leaned closer. They're investigating that too. Lena's nostrils flared, but she kept her voice steady. Daniel was unhinged. You can't pin his actions on me. I raised my eyebrows. Then why did you appear in his planning notes? Why did your name show up on the property logs? Why did the real estate agent confirm you visited the land? Her mask slipped further. Alana delivered the final blow with ruthless elegance. Lena, the state is preparing conspiracy charges. If you don't cooperate, you could be facing years in prison. But if you relinquish all claims, including the fraudulent will, we may advise leniency. The room shifted. Lena's confidence deflated like a punctured lung. You can't, her voice cracked. You can't take everything. You tried to take my life, I said softly. Consider this mercy. Finally, she broke. Her shoulders sagged. Her gaze dropped. Her hands trembled so violently she had to grip the edge of the table. What do you want? She whispered. Everything, I said. Every claim you made. Every document you signed. Every cent you touched. Her silence was the closest thing to surrender. Alana slid the final agreement across the table. Sign. With a shaky breath, Lena picked up the pen. It took 10 seconds. 10 seconds to bring down the woman who had helped orchestrate my disappearance. 10 seconds to sever her from every dollar, every asset, every piece of the future she thought she'd inherited. When she finished, she pushed the papers away without lifting her eyes. As she stood to leave, she paused beside me. You think you won, she whispered. But you have no idea what Daniel told me. I didn't move. And you have no idea what he told Callum. Her face blanched. I stepped closer, voice low and unwavering. I'm not afraid of you anymore. For the first time, she didn't have an answer. She left the room shaken, defeated, erased. Everything Daniel tried to steal, every asset, every right, every shred of my future, was mine again. But victory felt strange. Because one question lingered in the air like smoke. After everything he built with her, what was Daniel still hiding that even Lena didn't know? When Lena walked out of that room, empty-handed, exposed, and finally powerless, I felt something inside me unclench for the first time in months. Not triumph. Not vengeance. Not even relief. It was something quieter. Something steadier. A reclamation of oxygen, of space, of life. Because I wasn't just surviving Daniel's schemes anymore. I wasn't just fighting. I was winning. And not because of revenge, but because I refused to let the people who tried to erase me define even 1 second of my future. Daniel's sentencing came 6 weeks later. It was a packed courtroom. News outlets ran small stories about local fraud and estate tampering, though none of them understood the full horror or its intention. He appeared handcuffed, gaunt, and furious, still blaming me for everything he built, everything he broke, everything he lost. But the evidence was overwhelming. The forged documents. The insurance files. The financial transfers. The recordings. The cabin plans. The testimony Callum gave under oath, detailing every scenario Daniel had asked him to explore. Lena's cooperation sealed the case. Under pressure, she admitted to helping forge signatures, to participating in financial deception, and even more chilling, she confirmed Daniel discussed removal contingencies if divorce became too costly. When the judge read the sentence, 25 years with no chance of early release, Daniel didn't look at the judge. He stared directly at me. And for a moment, I expected him to explode, to spit out threats, to try to claw back control. But he didn't. He broke. His shoulders sagged. His jaw slackened. And for the first time since the day at the graduation ceremony, he realized he'd lost. Not to courts. Not to evidence. Not to the system. To me. Because I stepped out of the role he expected. The frightened, fragile wife who would crumble beneath his pressure. And became something he had never prepared for. A woman who refused to be erased. As for Lena, she avoided prison by the narrowest margin, only by providing full cooperation and turning over every shred of digital evidence she had. She fled the city immediately after the hearings, disappearing like smoke. I don't know where she went. I don't need to know. Some ghosts are better left unresolved. But Callum's confession stayed with me. After the trial wrapped, he approached me outside the courthouse. "Your husband wasn't as smart as he thought," he said quietly. "But he wasn't working alone." I froze. "What does that mean?" He hesitated. "I think there were people he paid. People none of us identified. People he trusted with tasks he didn't want traced." A cold shiver ran down my spine. "So, am I still in danger?" He shook his head. "No. Daniel's gone. And the only person who truly benefited from his plan was Lena, and now she's powerless. Whatever loose parts existed, they were only tied to him. Without him, there's no plan left." "But you don't know who they were," I said. "No," he admitted. "But I know this, Daniel didn't protect them. He didn't pay them fully. He didn't keep his promises. And people like that don't stay loyal when there's no reward." I exhaled slowly. "So they won't come after me?" Callum shook his head. "There's nothing to gain from you. You're not a target anymore." For the first time in months, I believed him. I rebuilt my life quietly. Piece by piece. Day by day. My daughter and I moved into a new home, bright, airy, full of windows and morning light. The complete opposite of the cabin where Daniel planned a future I was never meant to see. I restored my financial stability. I secured every account Daniel tried to drain. I invested in my own name, with my own future in mind. Not his. And the irony? The fortune Daniel tried so desperately to steal became the foundation of the life he never wanted me to have. I took classes I'd always postponed. Started a small consulting business. Repaired relationships with friends I'd drifted from during the marriage. Reclaimed hobbies. Found laughter again, slowly, cautiously, but genuinely. Some scars still throb at odd times. A sound at night. A sudden memory. A flash of headlights behind me on a dark road. But they don't own me anymore. Because the biggest realization came long after the courtrooms, long after the negotiations, long after the legal victories. Daniel didn't break me. He revealed me. He showed me the woman I'd forgotten I could be. The protector. The strategist. The survivor. The architect of my own future. And the day I signed the final document, securing full ownership of the house, the land, the assets, the accounts, everything he tried to redirect, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Freedom. Not the dramatic, cinematic kind. The quiet kind. The kind that sneaks in like warm sunlight after a storm. I sat on my new porch, coffee in hand, watching the sunrise. No fear. No shadows. No Daniel. Just me. Alive. Standing. Unbroken. Free. And with a future that belonged solely, finally, to myself. How did this story make you feel? Tell me your thoughts in the comments. And subscribe if you want the next story.